with the peace of God.
Sorry, I forgot to turn the recorder on.
That's
Okay,
okay.
okay. It's always perfect.
It's always perfect, right? It's never not perfect. And here, it says in the course, the world believes in idols. No one comes unless he worshiped them and still attempts to seek for one that yet might offer him a gift reality does not contain. Each worshiper of idols harbors hope his special deities will give him more than other men possess. And when one fails, another takes its place with hope or finding more of something else. And this is an ongoing process that we do. We just, what I saw in this mind is how it looked as though I was a nice character. Very nice, in fact, and, pretty much like sensitive and all these attributes. But the character was projecting attacked thoughts. And therefore, those attacked thoughts were my thoughts. That means that I did this to myself, right? All of it. And when you can own it completely, you can let it go. And I was not willing to own it until I saw it for what it really is and is my experience. Everything that happened perfectly for this mind. And it was interesting because when you really, like Ken Wapnick gives us so many hints along the way about how much we don't want the peace. And that's the part of us that doesn't want to wake up too. There is that part. Why? Because it doesn't know what we are. It feels like we are these people. It doesn't even understand what a mind is, no less that we are spirit, right? So there's nobody that can talk about me anymore, and it would even dawn on me to be the least bit upset. There's nothing that could happen at this moment that I wouldn't see exactly as being for me, because it's all happening perfectly, right? It always is happening perfectly. And the ego doesn't want to hear that, because the ego is all about fixing. It's all about analyzing. It's all about understanding. And, when I realized this past weekend when I was in Seattle, I got flooded with Course in Miracle lessons in my unconscious. Mine was just bringing them all up, especially I see only the past. I realized that it's done, that the undoing, oh yeah, there's more, I'm sure, but it's not as necessary now for me to even care if I still have an ego. That's when you know you've made progress. Because when you don't care, you realize that you really don't have an ego, because there is no ego. That's just belief in separation. That's just belief in these thoughts. That's the distraction. So it's kind of like, it's obvious peace can't be found in a world that is made from complete fear. And there is an addiction to pleasure in the ego mind. And that's pretty much what it says. You can have pleasure if you suffer for most of your life. That is the ego. That's what I give you. But there's joy in suffering from the ego. The ego loves suffering. And I could see that. To observe all of it is to own all of it, to know that this whole thing was a big joke. And it was almost like I went like this to myself. That's pretty much the way I see this now. There's absolutely nothing to fear, because fear is the world, and the world is not anything but objects in my mind, thought objects, thought forms, right? It never wants to understand that the source of our suffering lies in our choice for its thought system instead of the Holy Spirit. So why would we want a thought system that's based on judgment? Because we're addicted. That's why, because we don't know better, right? Thoughts won't come up of judgment if you believe that you're the same as everyone else. It's when we think we're different that these thoughts come up. Yeah, it's just this one instant, this holy instant that we are here right now. And remembering that we are as God created us. Over to you.
Okay. As long as you're on that subject, and thanks for sharing your your weekend in Seattle with us, where all of a sudden you were flooded with these Course in Miracle lessons. And you know, sometimes when you just get away from it all, you know, that's when your mind is fertile and open to what it is that we really truly want to be immersed in. And it sounds like, and I heard you kind of say, you know, it doesn't matter what happens here. You know, I'm like perfectly safe. And when you said that, it reminded me of uh something I shared yesterday. I do a Wednesday Zoom with Cindy Krupp and a few others. Some of you know the people. There's Corinne. There's Rico. There's a few others part of that Wednesday morning. It's a 10:30 Zoom, and they were talking about trust, and John Sunday, who some of you may know John. He used to come. Uh, John said, "Well, you know, Dov loves the topic of trust." And that day, yesterday, I just came across this picture of a bird sitting in a branch of a tree. And this is what the meme said. It said, a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not on the branch, but on its own wings. Always believe in yourself. Now, all of a sudden, and I've seen this particular picture before, and of course I appreciate it, but somehow it clicked for me that this is the missing piece in trust. You know, when it says in the Course in Miracles, chapter 26, section 8, trust would settle every problem now. And that's what it says. And under trust in the manual for teachers, section 4, it says, hey, you know, there's 6 steps to trust, and trust can take a very long time. He tells you that in step number 5. So it's already taking you a long time just to get to step 5, and that can take you a long time because step number 5 is about bringing every thought and decision that you make to the Holy Spirit. And we don't do that. Dov doesn't do that. But that's how you begin to identify with who you truly are. And real trust is knowing that you are the holy, complete, perfect Son of God, and that you live in the peace of God, which is your immunity. That's your that's your get out of jail free card. That nothing in this world can touch you, because you are not of this world. You know, it kind of reminds me of that same story I've told here a dozen times. It's a story of when Lisa Natoli brought Greta Janker from Endeavor many years ago to ACM Gather for a Saturday night teaching. And they got on the subject of faith and trust. And somebody in the ACM Gather room asked, well, what is the difference between faith and trust? And Greta said, oh my God, there's a world of difference. She said, in faith, you know, if you have to push a wheelbarrow across a high wire with no safety net underneath, you know that you have faith in yourself that somehow you're going to put one foot in front of another and you're going to be able to get from one side of the high wire to the other, and you're going to be safe. Because you know that that you can do it because you have the mental and physical skills to do it. Trust, that's a different world. In trust, you put yourself into the wheelbarrow. It doesn't matter who's pushing it. You know that you're safe. You know, I've been telling that story for years. Recently, someone mentioned, and even if the wheelbarrow falls over without the safety net, you're still smiling and laughing because you're still safe. And I remember saying, yeah, that's true. Well, this is why it's true. this bird sitting on the limb of a tree, on the branch of a tree. I don't care if the tree disappears, the bird is safe. Why? Because she has trust in her own wings. And as Jesus says in the Course of Miracles, you don't have wings of a sparrow. You have the wings of an eagle, your high soaring eagle. That's, there's nothing in this world that can touch you, literally. That's why you're safe. And, the word trust, I always have a little fun with it because unless it's 100% trust, it's not trust. If it's 99 and 9/10% and you're holding out a little, you're holding on with your fingernails, just in case there's no one there. Really? Well, guess what? That's still fear. That's still fear. Trust is to know that I and the Father are one. That I am the Holy Son of God. I've always been the Holy Son of God. I was never this body who has to push a wheelbarrow across a high wire without a safety net. You gotta laugh. You simply gotta laugh. And with that, I'll turn this mic back on over to you, Sharon.
Okay, well, look, the ego made the world as it perceives it, but the Holy Spirit is the reinterpreter. And, it seemingly takes time to get all this. For this mind, it did. On the ego level, we made our brother and ourselves. This is what Ken's writing. All we made were the illusory shadows of the past. Our real self has nothing to do with the unreal. And so we need to do nothing but change our minds and look through Christ's vision. Everyone is made free of our mistakes because we are one. There can be no exceptions. Thus, Jesus leads us to bless everyone in our holy relationship, which his love exemplifies. And then he writes, Jesus says in text chapter 17, my holy brother, I would enter into all your relationships and step between you and your fantasies. Let my relationship to you be real to you, and let me bring reality to your perception of your brothers. Be not separate from me, and let not the holy purpose of the atonement be lost to you in dreams of vengeance. Relationships in which such dreams are cherished have excluded me. Let me enter in the name of God and bring you peace, that you may offer peace to me. That is it. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing who's with you all the time. The seeming people are just reflections of the mind, just like the character that's talking right now. It's a reflection of my thoughts, and it's not anything. The ego doesn't want this not to be real. It wants it to be real. I can feel it in my throat. Like there's like a contraction in my throat. So I can feel like the slut. Do you remember in The Wizard of Oz when the Wicked Witch died and she was melting and she was I'm melting. That's pretty much what's happening in my mind. The ego is melting. It's melting. And in the melting of it all is the clarity of what I really am, that I've always been, the dreamer of the dream. The character is actually meaningless. I mean, I could go on and say, well, this is what's going on here as the character, because consciousness is seeing out of the eyes of this character. It's seeing, life awareness is everywhere. But the person is absolutely meaningless. And that is your get out of jail card, if I ever had one, really. And Jesus always says, ask yourself as you go through your day, is it not a worthy purpose for me to see this day as one that could make me happy? That is the goal, isn't it? It landed on me as a child that I really felt like we were supposed to be happy here. And that irritated my mother so much. She would always tease me and say, Sharon wants everybody to be happy, happy, happy. There's nothing happy here. Again, the atonement was already working in me. That's why I showed up as a happy camper. And I pretty much had every bit as crazy ego as everybody else. However, my right mind was it was a pretty gentle way of seeing the world, the seeming world. When you look out, what am I really seeing but concepts? Like when I'm talking now, I'm a concept talking. I am an image talking. But that's not all that I am. I'm everything. I'm everything. Every object that exists in this universe is me. It's all one, and it's beautiful. It really is. There is no peace in this world because there is no world. We only thought there was. And that's the truth. The Holy Spirit's presence in our minds ensures us that our wildest nightmares and most vicious thoughts have had no effect on the peace of heaven. All of it has been made up, all of it. And the shadows are just that. They're shadows of the past. So, when all this was coming up for me, mine went into a whole story how it wished I lived in Seattle and how Seattle's so wonderful and these people are great. And this is all about differences, isn't it? Because that's basically the ego's mantra. Let's look at the differences. You're special and no one else is, or you're not special and everyone is. That is the booby prize. So there is no peace but the peace of God, right? And the Holy Spirit is our bridge to God. It's a bridge. And what is the ticket? Willingness. Without willingness, we can't go anywhere. But willingness comes into the mind and it's birthed into the mind on its own. If I say to it, let's just say my husband, just for example, I was pointing out to him some stuff that the course is teaching, and he was saying, well, I understand it's the ego, but nobody gets rid of that. And right then and there, I knew he was not interested because he doesn't know that nobody gets rid of that. I mean, how do you really know anything? I mean, I know that he's only seeing his own mind and I'm seeing mine. But, to continue in this path is not done by anyone individually. It's the sonship just moving through us all. And yes, minds are joined. We really can do more work from within than anything else, The entirety of the journey is encapsulated in the statement. I begin in my perceptual world comprised of differences, the home of specialness. I then realize that peace does not come from getting what I want from you, but realizing that what I want is already within me. It's this gold that we have in us. It's the sun that we have in us. It's the light. That's what we really are. We are the light of God. And to be happy, to be joyful, to be at peace is all the same. They all completely are just an isness. And the isness is what we are. God is, and we cease to speak. Dov, over to you.
Okay, God is, and then we cease to speak brings you right into this holy instant presence. And it's only in the present that you can be happy. I heard you talking about happiness. Yeah, and I don't know if you were here when I played that Rupert Spiro thing on.
Yeah, I heard it. I love it.
Very good. Yeah, so he says, God's not really interested in your prayers. He doesn't care whether you're devoted or not, because that's only in the ego world. Well, I'm going to give my devotion to making money. No, I'll give my devotion to God. God has no interest in your devotion to him. He just wants you to be, as he is, happy. And over and over in the course it says, God's will for me is perfect happiness, lesson 101. And then it says in lesson 102, and I share God's will. We have one will. It's not two wills, one will. And my will is to be happy also. But we think in this world something else is better. Like you were saying, well, when you went to Seattle, it seemed like Seattle was better. The ego always does. There's something more that's different than where you are right now. That's always better because the ego lives in time. It cannot live in the present. It only lives in the past, which doesn't exist, and the future, which doesn't exist. Only the present, the eternal present, is
Right.
real. So your willingness to say, of course, Seattle might look better, but that's the ego mind. Making a long story short, I was listening to Ken Wapping this morning, and he said something that I heard him say many times before, but this time he happened to explain it. And he used the expression secret sins and hidden hates. And he says, well, the secret sins are, he says, you really are not angry at the sins of others, really. You're looking at your own sin of having done what you think you did to God. That's the one that makes you feel so guilty. But you choose, projection makes perception, to see the guilt in others. But that's your secret sin. And then he says, and hidden hates. Hidden hates is you really hate God for what God did to you. Wow. I didn't realize that was what secret sins and hidden hates was. So he didn't go on too much further on it. And I'm saying to myself, I'd like to look further into where this is in the course. So I put in secret sins and hidden hates, and voila, where do you think it shows up? Where I would never, ever, ever expect it to show up. One of my favorite sections. Obviously, I never read the whole section, or at least I didn't understand it when I read it. Chapter 31, section 8, choose once again. And the only part of choose once again is like the first couple of paragraphs where it says, well, you once made a faulty choice in the past. Now you have another chance to choose correctly now. And that's how I've always used it. So I went to get the paragraph and I put it on I put it in the chat. So it's in chapter 31, section 8, paragraph 9, down at the end of this lesson. And this is like the last lesson it's the last section in the Course in Miracles textbook. And I'm going to read the paragraph 9. Let us be glad that we can walk the world and find so many chances to perceive another situation where God's gift can once again be recognized as ours, our own. And thus thus with all the vestiges of hell, all the reminders of hell, the secret sins and the hidden hates begun, and all the loveliness which they concealed appear like lawns of heaven to our sight, to lift us high above the thorny roads we traveled on before that Christ appeared. And he tells you, not one road in this world leads to anything other than a dead end. And he says that in the Real Alternative, which is also in the final chapter 31, section 4. He says, do you really want to try all the other roads? Really? You think there's hope that one of them are going to lead someplace? Really? And you really got to laugh. Why would I ever really want to remember myself as separate or different or apart from what I am? I am as God created me, one, equal, all included equally. And I'm going to go on and share here. It says, hear me, my brothers, hear and join with me. God has ordained. I cannot call in vain, and in his certainty I rest content. For you will hear and you will choose again, and in this choice is everyone made free. Everyone made free. And this is one of the last paragraphs in the entire course. Over to you, Sharon.
Well, okay, so it's funny, Dov. You really don't have much to say because words chop everything up. But anyway, um, what Ken is saying here is what unifies your worldly experience is the single purpose that comes from the single teacher in your mind. See, everything that occurs during the day is part of your script to enslave you and everyone else, but which you now turn into a happy classroom that Jesus uses to teach you to awaken from the dream. Yet see how quickly you forget. You close your book and forget everything you've just read. That is something I want to stop at because that is what happens through the whole process. If you don't write it down, you're going to forget it because it's the ego's Jedi law. That's what Keith Kavanaugh calls it. The ego's Jedi type of thing. Get out of the way. You don't listen to this mind. I'm talking. I'm the tyrant. That is the ego. It's not like it's even bad. It's just belief. But behind those beliefs are so many stories, the stories that block us in a place where we've never even left. So we see how quickly we forget things and we think that we are doing that. No, it's all part of this game. You get clarity, it goes. You get clarity, it goes. At this time in my awakening, I realized that I have clarity now. There's nothing to worry about, Now, I can't say that all fear is gone. That is, I wouldn't say that because for me to be the student always is for me to keep learning. And even when I stop learning, I'll be learning because if I don't have anything to say, then I'm okay. But if I need to ask a question still, then I'm still traveling home, even though I've never left. For peace is union, if it be of God. The oneness of Christ within himself and his oneness with God are reflected here in one purpose of forgiveness we share with everyone. Peace cannot but follow. We seek no further. We are close to home and draw still nearer every time we say, there is no peace except the peace of God. And I am glad and thankful it is so. The key is to be glad and thankful this world will never give us what we want. Our egos are ungrateful. This is so, for they do want us to see that the world fails to satisfy our needs. True gratitude, however, comes in realizing, thank God I was wrong. Well, that's really important. For now, I find the peace for which I always yearned. That's it. Thank God I'm wrong. That is the answer to all of it. We have been wrong about all of it. I thought I was an art teacher, a mother. I'm not even that. I am the seer. I am the one that's watching. I am the Holy Spirit. Silence and nothing more. There is no sound and nothing to be seen. No finger still grasp at the world. All prayers have been forgot. For there is nothing now that can be asked. The voice for God no longer speaks. There is no need remaining. There was once a time, now unremembered, when there was a world. A world is a word. A world. A word is spoken and the world is done. And what does that really mean? It means nothing happened. It means we've been dreaming. It means this voice that's talking is a character's voice. It means that we're free. There is no peace but the peace of God. And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift to just leave that process. And for today is to realize there's only peace here. And I can see peace instead of this, right? I can see peace instead of this. So, what is the best thing you can be is silent. Silence is really who we are. Silence is what is living through all of this. Over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I was listening to you, and I heard you say I was wrong about everything, and the course says the same thing. By the way, we are just simply mistaken, but a mistake is not a sin. It's a mistaken perception. It was an interpretation, and we did choose the wrong teacher. That's how we got here. We listened to a know-it-all who made up a whole world of things that it gives meaning to. And that's why the first couple lessons of this course is nothing I see here means anything. And just in case anything means something, guess what? I'm the one who's given it all the meaning it has for me. You got to laugh. That's the only mistake. I give meaning to things. So when you say I was wrong, that lesson number 25, I do not know what anything is for, which I use as a mantra lesson, is the surest way to unhook you from the ego thought system. Because the ego thought system is all about, I know. In fact, I think the word ego comes from the Latin, I know, ego, I know. Yeah, I mean, Socrates, it was Socrates who says, I may be considered the smartest man, but the only thing I know is I don't know anything. I don't know what anything is for. He said that 2,000 years ago. I mean, I don't know, and yet he was considered the smartest man. Why is that? So when you fill your head or mind with the thoughts of the ego, of course you're going to be lost. You're in a swamp. You are in the mud. But luckily, like the lotus blossom, you start in the mud, but you can say, I do not know what this mud is for. And sooner or later, you're going to sprout this beautiful blossom, this lotus blossom, where the mind all of a sudden gets free of the mud and says, oh, there is something beyond this world that I truly do want. Isn't that a lesson in the course? Yeah. Lesson 128, 129, and 130. There's nothing in this mud I want. There's nothing in this world I want. 129. But beyond this mud, beyond this world, there is a world I want. And then 130, it's impossible to be in two different, you can't live in hell and be in heaven at the same time. Really? Everybody will laugh and said, well, of course not. But hell is nothing more than the belief in separation. And heaven is nothing more than the awareness of oneness. It's kind of simple, simplicity is of God. Now, the ego said, no, man, there's much more to it than this. Let me show you the way. And we listen to this voice like it knows the way. There is no way. You're not going anywhere. You never left. You got to laugh. It's a journey without distance. Back over to you, love.
Okay. All righty. Well, it's funny. There's not much to say anymore, Dov, because we've said it all. There's no peace but the peace of God. And the lesson that what we're living through now is I'm not a body. I am free. I am still as God created me. And when you see that, the stillness, that's what we are. I am still, right? The stillness is what we really are. We're just this still space that holds everything here. But what's everything? It's all made of nothing. So I don't know, but what I've seen now is that a quiet mind is the biggest gift of all, right? It says, Ken writes, the ego hides in the body, and therefore when you see the body for what it really is, you will see the ego for what it really is. Like the ego, the body is separation. That's the point. The body is separating us from each other. The only problems we've ever had is that we believe separation is real, and it's not. So we're really free to do whatever, whatever comes up, just to say this weekend, I'm going actually tomorrow morning to Philadelphia because it's my other grandson's birthday. He's a year old. So I'll be driving with my two 15-year-old grandchildren, a girl and a boy. And I'll meet everybody in Philly. But what I'm going to say is that, how do I show up? You show up just by being. You're being love. That's all that's here. By the love of God, you bring it wherever you are. You know, Jesus always says, step back with me to the holy instant where you will be innocent and free, no longer sinful and bound. Now, the holy instant, there is no person, there is no object. It's just a space. That is the memory of our true self. That is where we really are, in heaven. And the characters, well, we can have fun with them now because we're not taking them seriously. There's nothing to take seriously, nothing at all. In fact, that is the whole thing in life, is even awakening, don't take it seriously because it's happening on its own. And you know, there are spiritual teachers that make it seem like it's the most important thing. Well, if it's happening to you, it's the most important thing. But if it's not happening to you, it's not going to be important. To me, the most important thing is showing up as truth, as God, as love, and not having conflicting interests. Because really, what is there to, when you really see that it's all love, it's all God, it's all perfect. You know, Ken is writing here something, and it's coming. The ego holds the body dear because it dwells in it and lives united with the home. You know, what happens sometimes with the home, we believe these bodies that they're us, and we really, you know, get worried that it won't always be here. This is just thoughts that are coming up right now. But there's nothing to worry about because it's truly an appearance. That's all it is. There's nothing inside of it. If you go within, you know there's nothing there. You know, what really helped me a lot in this process was ideas leave not their source. The ego does not really dwell in the body because the mind cannot be in a projection. Ideas leave not their source. However, the ego's strategy tells us that ourself, which is now an ego, does indeed dwell in the body. These statements thus reflect the double-shielded ego strategy. The second shield is the body, which was made to keep the thought of separation and guilt hidden, the ego's first shield. This is such a thought-out dream. It really is. It's a thought-out dream, the way we hid ourselves from who we are. And it's always perfect because I'm going to end today saying, well, it's not time to end. It's only 9:22. But I don't know what else to say except there's only peace of God. That's all there is.
All right. I'll just see if I can share a little here in the closing minutes. You know, as Ken Wapnick said, learning the course at a young age is probably not helpful because one should actually literally understand what the ego is for. The ego is for survival. And young people, I met somebody in the last few days who apparently had some wonderful magical formula for making a lot of money in the crypto markets and the cryptocurrencies and bitcoins and things like that, and is so enamored with the idea that I can become rich. Now, I went through the same thing in my 20s. I actually left a good job with IBM when I was 24 years old. Everyone said, how could you leave a good job with IBM to become a stockbroker in Wall Street? And 6 years later, I was making 10 times the money I was making at IBM. And I was thinking, wow, man, this is the easiest way to become rich. But, the vicissitudes of life is that, the world is not a place to become rich. The world is a classroom where you come to learn lessons. And the lessons we come to learn is that the world is not real, but you're not going to find it out unless you go through the world, experience the world, and then find the world is not what you think it is. Hi, Regis, how are you? So you go through the world and you you think, oh well, this is it. I have a real great taste. It feels so good, and I'm doing so good. And then all of a sudden you fall flat on your face. And that's the best news that could possibly happen to you. Because that's the first time you look and see, what is this for? You know, I mean, I was so happy and now I'm so unhappy. Yeah, there is no happiness and joy in this world. It's a place where you come to survive, where you think that you're all alone, and I have some magic way of making this happen. And yeah, all of a sudden I see other people doing the same thing, and whatever they can do, I can do also. Yeah, and then that's the bait, that's the cheese in the mousetrap, and slam. They got you. The ego's got you. And there's no way out until you say, is there another way of looking at this? Maybe I missed something. And that's exactly why Ken Wapping says, if your life is working, this course is not for you. This course is for someone who actually recognizes and sees that somehow they are missing something that I thought I knew, but now I realize that I don't know. And coming to I don't know is one of the most wonderful places you could possibly come. As Regis was teaching the other day on lesson number 24, I do not know my own best personal interests, as it says in paragraph 2. If you knew that you didn't know your own best personal interests, you could be taught what your best personal, you don't really have a personal interest, but what your best interest is. Your best interest is to say, I do not know. Then your mind becomes open to hearing what you need to hear to let go of the thinking that the world is something that is your oyster that's going to give you something. No, the world is not your oyster. For sure, the world is a classroom where you come to learn lessons. And so I just wanted to share that the idea of saying I do not know, that's ego, like I said earlier, I think is the Latin for I know, and I do not know is the unhooking from that ego thought system. If you want to share a little, fine. I do want to mention tonight is the deep dive into the miracle, into the Manual for Teachers, and we have a good group. Please join us. Starts at 7:30 on ACIM Gather's Zoom. And if you're not on our mailing list for that Zoom link, please just contact us at acimgather.us or Lynn Johnson, and we'll be glad to put you on our mailing list. So I know Regis is in the wings. He's right here smiling, and I'm going to turn this mic on over to you for the last closing moment, Sharon. If you want to do that, turn this mic back on over to you. Oh, just before I do that, I just want to mention gratitude. The course says in the Teacher's Manual, section 23, and gratitude to God. I put it in the chat. Gratitude to God becomes the way in which He is remembered. For love cannot be far behind a grateful heart and a thankful mind. God enters easily, for these are the true conditions for your homecoming. So if you have gratitude for the things of this world, oh, I'm so glad that this is happening. Yeah, you might think you don't need the Course in Miracles, but you're barking up the wrong tree. And there is no tree. You got to laugh. As that bird.
All right, with that, I'll just say for everyone today, there is no peace. I disappeared. You see that, right? Regis, you see, I'm not there. I mean, I am ascending. I'm gone. I am just the voice. But that's truly what we are. We're not these forms. We're formless, and whatever that really means. But once again, there is no peace but the peace of God. And with that, I say, see you tonight at ACIM Gather for A Course in Miracles. And now Regis is clapping.
God bless all. Thank you so much.
God
Diane,
bless you
Sharon.
all. God bless you all.
Thanks, you guys. Let me shut off this recorder because we're going to go live with Regis.